What is up guys, welcome back to another GeekaWhat video. Today I've got a bit of a different PC build style video for you. I wanted to build a system based on form factor rather than on price. A PC the size of a console but with the flexibility of a computer that runs Windows. I wanted something that blends in with my living room, home theatre, entertainment setup without breaking the bank and without being colossal in size. So let's take a look at the parts I selected and why, and exactly how well this system performs. Now I must admit the timeline for actually getting this system put together has deviated a number of times. First, Intel released their new lineup of processors with fantastic single-threaded performance that make them great for gaming, and then NVIDIA came along just last week with the RTX 2060, which for a build of this size and form factor kind of changed the game if I'm being honest with you. That use of the RTX 2060 allows for really good 1440p and 4K gaming, which makes it great for a home gaming environment. Battlefield 5 with ray tracing enabled, even at 4K sees respectable frame rates of like 40-45 FPS, but toned down to 1440p and well in excess of 60 frames per second consistently in the latest AAA titles is more than possible. Forza Horizon 4, Black Ops 4, Just Cause 3 are all going to work really well on this system. If you're into the slightly older games as well, CSGO, World of Warcraft, League of Legends, 4K and the multiple 100 FPS mark is going to be where it's at, and that's really impressive for a build of this price point with these components and ultimately of this form factor. So let's look at the parts I chose that make it all really so possible. For the CPU in this build for the processor, I selected the Intel Core i5-9600K with a blazingly fast single core boost clock speed of 4.6 GHz. Single threaded performance is more than covered. Whilst games are starting to utilise more cores, and that's where the 6 core 6 thread build up of this CPU does come into play, single threaded performance for gaming is still the most valuable attribute in my opinion. The CPU also doesn't run too hot and the TDP isn't too bad, alongside that backwards compatibility, which I'll come on to in a moment's time. Now for the CPU cooler in this build, I selected the Silverstone Argon series AR11. If you were going for an AMD chip, the included stock coolers, providing the clearance is decent, would actually work pretty well, and this covers the Intel sort of stock cooler replacement market really quite nicely indeed. A super easy installation method that is unique to Intel CPUs only, with high quality metals, those copper heat pipes helping to really quickly dissipate that heat. With a nice heatsink design and low profile fan, it really is an impressive unit. Thanks to the design of this case in terms of airflow as well, you're able to get fresh air from the ventilation on the side of the chassis without a problem, which is going to help to keep those temperatures crucially as low as possible. For the motherboard in this build, this is an area where you may have slightly differing preferences, but I selected the ASRock H310M ITX AC, and here is why. It's an ITX form factor motherboard that we need for this case, and it actually has Wi-Fi built in. Running an Ethernet cable isn't so much a problem in a home studio or office or bedroom environment, but in a living room can be a little bit more logistically difficult. Whilst this motherboard doesn't support CPU overclocking at all, and that is one of the disadvantages of the cheaper Intel chipsets over their AMD counterparts, overclocking headroom here is few and far between anyway. While CPU temps are good and ventilation is good, the CPU cooler isn't massive. It hasn't got great amounts of tolerances, and if I'm mounting the case in a fairly confined space anyway, I don't want to be unnecessarily pushing that CPU. Which raises the question, James, why go for an overclocking friendly processor if you're not going to overclock? And there's two reasons for that. The first reason is because Intel haven't yet bulked out the rest of the 9000 series lineup anyway, so you can't go for the latest non-overclocking chip, and even if you could, I wouldn't recommend it. That's because often the overclocking SKUs have higher base and boost clock speeds out of the box, meaning whether you're overclocking or not, you're going to get better single-threaded performance, and that for me was really important. I want to get the best performance at stock speeds, and that's where that 9600K comes into a league of its own. For the memory in this build for the RAM, I selected two 8GB DIMMs of Corsair's Vengeance LPX. With a 3000 MHz clock speed, it's nice and fast and can be set in the motherboard BIOS. It's going to help to alleviate any bottlenecks, and 16GB of capacity is the sweet spot in 2019 in my opinion. 8GB just simply isn't enough, especially if you go for two 4GB DIMMs, you want to upgrade later, you've got to replace the whole entire kit. Given this motherboard, and all ITX boards for that matter, only boast two RAM DIMM slots. For the storage configuration in this build, this is where it all gets a little bit interesting because of those space constraints. First and foremost, a 500GB ADATA SX8200Pro provides plenty of fast NVMe M.2 storage for your Windows boot drive and most frequently used applications. I also popped in a 500GB Kingston HyperX Savage SSD, which is a little bit cheaper and is going to give me some mass storage. But once again, it's all down to personal preferences and just how many cables you want to squeeze into this system. For the graphics card in this build, this is probably admittedly where the bulk of the cash was spent. The new Founders design on this 2060 has to be my favourite GPU design ever, and I normally love RGB and all the other fads as other people would call them. This particular card is pretty phenomenal for that $350 price point, though I'll link up-to-date pricing in the description below and my review of this card in the card section here. With performance on par with a 1070 Ti from last generation, which I found to be true in most cases, it's a really impressive unit. And we'll start to see versions of this card from board partners such as Asus, MSI and GeekaWhat come onto that market very, very quickly indeed. If you can pick up this Founders card though, which fits in this case no problem, I'd definitely recommend it. And going for a 2-fan 2060, providing it fits in the chassis, isn't a bad bet considering the amount of available airflow and direct ventilation. ITX cards with a single fan may have a lower clock speed and thus performance will be lower, temperatures will be higher, and it's not always the best way to go. All in all, really impressed with this 2060 with a single 8-pin power connector that keeps cable clutter and power consumption and crucially heat nice and low with DisplayPort, HDMI and USB-C display outputs. For the penultimate part in this build for the case, this is the Silverstone RVZ03W. You can get this case in multiple variants, from a black version, a white version and addressable RGB versions of both. This case also has a few surprises in store with a really thorough feature set. From the really conclusive front I/O with USB 3, power, reset, headphone and mic jacks, to the support for full-size ATX power supplies and GPUs of a really good length. Drive mounting support is another big bonus in this case, and the space utilization is pretty superb. I must admit, building an ITX system takes a bit more patience. You can't just cram in the cables, set and forget about them. You have to put a bit of effort and organisation in. Ultimately, I think this white version works best for my sort of living room environment, though the black version perhaps would blend in a little bit more with other set-top boxes. You can't go too far wrong with a chassis like this, and I must give massive praise to Silverstone on just the amount of airflow included with this system and those low profile, quiet, airflow optimised fans. For the final part in this build for the power supply, I selected the Silverstone Strider Gold 650W. This is actually the world's smallest fully modular, full-size ATX power supply, which is really good in a build where space is at a minimum. While on one hand, support for ATX power supplies in such a small case is good because it helps with that value proposition, you haven't awfully got a whole lot of room, so going for a small power supply is kind of vital in a system like this. Having it be fully modular is also a big bonus, as it means you only plug in the cables you need and don't have to deal with a rat's nest of cables that can be difficult to hide and store away in a build where space really is at a premium. This is 80+ gold certified as well, which means it's super duper efficient and it's got fantastic reviews, which is always a good indication. But that about wraps it up for all the components I selected in this build. If you did enjoy it, make sure to get subscribed, ding dong that notification bell, and as always, we'll see you in the next GeekaWhat video.